up, comedians
And welcome to another episode.
of In Defense Of.
This time we will be defending Garfield 2004.
Yes, exactly. And we are gonna go at it because honestly, I had a lot of nostalgic memories because I've watched this a lot as a kid and I'm hearing so many things about how bad it is. And I remember on the top of my head how nostalgic, but also people say that's a thing that puts it into the better part of their memories. But honestly, it just feels like Garfield.
And while we can understand a few of the complaints, I think it goes above just complaining about it. And with the 2024 version coming out real soon, we wanted to do this one winter before the movie come out with editing time, of course.
Of course, and we get to really analyze and dive deep into a lot of what Garfield feels like in the movie that really relates to the comics and honestly makes it better for him in the future of what Garfield began to be.
Yes. And with that, let's start. The first one is Bill Murray really didn't want to do the role. And that is true. He was thought it was going to be someone else doing the role or doing the direction of the movie. And that's true, but I don't think that is positive or negative against the movie. I just think that's just an anecdote.
Yeah, and there is a lot of people saying how like the acting with a lot of the characters are very bland. I feel like that works. I feel like if anything, Liz kind of doesn't really have an act. Like she doesn't really have much emotion
But
through it. But other than
in,
that, I
in,
don't think I have any more things people can complain about.
the only other thing I see is that while Garfield is a CGI cat, they use a real dog for Odie, which is fair, but I just think that's to draw attention to Garfield in the major scenes.
Because it's his movie.
Yeah.
It's not an Odie movie. Although that is something that could
Yeah,
be
I would 100% watch an Odie movie.
just an the Odie movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, now I honestly there the song choices are kind of random. I do like that though.
Yeah, it does. It is set in its time. Like
Yeah.
it is set in the early 2000s because of the song choices, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way it is.
Now that we talked about most of the complaints that we really had with the movie,
Or the complaints that we've seen.
let's talk about the good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, the good parts of this movie, I feel like really go hard with the comics, and how Bill Murray kind of portrays him in general. I feel like people complain about that, but at the same time, I'm looking at this and I'm like, Bill Murray is not trying at all, and you're complaining about that because Garfield doesn't try.
I I actually thought the villain was extremely good for a. It got me to.
He was memorable.
Yeah,
he was memorable.
It got me to really dislike him, and that's what a villain should do.
But also he was kind of funny. But
you know that he was the villain. You know, there wasn't any question.
Steak. I don't like lasagna.
um,
I actually love that because it just adds
and
more joy to the character.
I thought the character of John actually kind of portrayed him
Very well.
Better than I think he was actually better than the animated version from the early, was it late 80s? I
Like the cartoon
Yeah, the
version.
cartoon version
Yeah,
of
yeah. Honestly, because
because he was a bit more like he was aloof, but he wasn't stupid. Is if that makes sense.
I feel like in a way, like his character in the comics kind of have him portrayed as having no character, but in this he kind of really does have a character and a development with that character. And let me go straight ahead to Odie because the person that is training Odie to be Odie, bro, that dog is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, and the choice to have real animals on set is never easy. And I mean, it probably would have been easier to CGI, even in the early 2000s. But and especially with the scene where they were the dog show, that was probably a hard scene to shoot, and it came out really well for what it was.
I also, even though you can also count this as a bad thing, this is, for me, it's a really good thing. I love how the focus wasn't completely on normal because they really kind of pushed that aside to really
Yeah.
put them normal into like a regular cat. I honestly had no complaints there because I felt like usually whenever normal's there, he's just
It
the biggest part of the story, and it's like,
it
nah.
kind of felt like Normal was supposed to be a little older, so it's like Odie was supposed to be like come after all the world's cutest kitten stuff.
They don't even portray him like that, and I
Yeah,
absolutely love that.
the voice of Arlene was, I think, on point. So I do think the voice of Arlene and her character as kind of his conscience uh made her very memorable as the same way it did in the comic. Like she was supposed to be like tell him what to do because he's not like, immoral. He's just too lazy to care.
I also, I already mentioned the comic part of it because there's so much to love about the fact that it really takes its love to the comics. Because John even was part of like how accurate the comics were. Like even John had his moments, and mostly when it came to comics, it was mostly just John and Garfield.
Especially in the early comics.
And I love how the story is how they got Odie because
Yeah.
that is like a very like
It
classic way to open. That's how base the
Mhm.
regular Garfield opened up.
Yeah, except the whole Lyman stuff, and no one remembers that. So except me.
You know what they say about Lyman.
Yeah, he's probably dead. uh, no.
So I did like the ending where like the credits shot because right after he's done dancing, it kind of shoots off to Garfield in a gray background where that you just kind of assume that he's dead because it's just his picture in gray. And then there's just the
Now,
song playing in the background. That's just absolutely like
now,
amazing.
I do think that for 2004, and I think it was, and
Yeah.
that it was actually, if you consider the CGI actually holds up better than other tries at this style. Like it's like Yogi Bear came out later, but doesn't have they don't match up as well
I
as this
actually
movie did.
see what he's saying. Let me say, yeah, this is way better animated than the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, no,
Even though I
yeah,
did it come out
the
later?
fish.
Yeah,
No, I think it came out about the same time.
yeah. I think it came out in like 2003, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
same time.
Yeah, and it really like developed on its animation and didn't really make. Even though Garfield is based on its humor, he didn't. They didn't really focus on the humor part
Yeah,
of it like fully to really make Garfield emotional.
and and they did what a movie should do. They took the story and they made it bigger with a longer time. So I think that's all we got as far as like in defense of the 2004 version of Garfield.
I absolutely love this movie, and I was basically born with this movie. and
And
I,
I never understood all the hate. So
me neither,
so
honestly.
um if you have a good reason why you like this movie or didn't like this movie, please leave it in the comments and please like and subscribe.
Love you all. Take care.